Hello, seventh graders. So this week in our historical fiction unit, we are going to be comparing the research that you've done to the actual setting of the book that you chose to read. So you should be working in your KWL chart, looking at what you learned. And the focus right now on what you're learning about your time period really needs to be around the time and place. So by that I mean what years, what locations, specific dates, specific events, because then we're going to look at your book and see how your author is able to incorporate that historical research into his or her writing. So the next page we're going to look at is a Venn diagram where you will be asked to compare what you learned about the actual historical event to how your author portrays it in fiction. So this is what you're going to be working on. You'll see a Venn diagram, and you're going to be looking at 5 facts from your historical research that tell about the time and place of your time period. And as you can see, I'm going to be focusing on the Holocaust because I've been reading the book Milkweed to my in-person students. So the first thing I want to think about is time and place, because that is my setting, and that's really the focus of this piece, is to really look at setting, the time and the place. So that's used in 2 different ways. So I'm going to start first by thinking about my historical research, and I'm just going to use bulleted facts. So I found in my research that the Holocaust was from 1933 to 1945. The Holocaust primarily was centralized in Germany, Poland, Austria, Czechoslovakia, and I'm just going to abbreviate that since it's a really long word. What else I know about it? Who was involved? It was the Nazi Party and Adolf Hitler, and their goal was to exterminate. And I'm going to go outside of my circle, but that's okay. Exterminate Jews, Gypsies, and what they considered undesirables. And that population includes academics like from universities, people that were physically and mentally handicapped, homosexuals, anybody that didn't fit the perfect Nazi identification. So the next thing I need to think about was, okay, so what, from the research that I just jotted in my historical research side of this Venn diagram, what part of those is factually described in Milkweed by Jerry Spinelli? So in Milkweed, the story takes place in 1939. So looking at this fact, I know that's historically accurate because that falls within that time period of 1933 to 1945. It takes place in Warsaw, Poland, in the Jewish ghetto. And again, historically accurate because Poland was one of the Central European nations where the Holocaust was most dominant. In this particular story, the main character, Misha, or Stop Thief, calls the Nazis jackboots, and he's pretty impressed by them because of the way they march, and they have these big shiny boots. And in this particular story, the Jews are discriminated against during a day called Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass. The storefronts and houses of Jews were marked with the Star of David, and a lot of the stores and homes were destroyed, ransacked, vandalized. So I'm noticing that Jerry Spinelli so far used some pretty accurate information to describe the time and place of Milkweed. So the last thing I want to think about is, all right, what parts of Milkweed are fiction? What parts of the story really are not historically, verifiable? You couldn't go in and say that these particular people were real. You couldn't say that these particular places were real. So when I noticed in my book, Milkweed, that the characters were make-believe, the characters were fictional, except for the Nazis. were fictional. And I'll name them because we always want to use specific evidence from the text. So we have Misha, who was originally known as Stop Thief, and his friend Yuri. And then there's Janina. And then I'm just going to call them the boys because there is a group of orphan Jewish boys that Yuri and Misha spend a good deal of time with in and out throughout the story. Another thing that is fictional is the boys. They lived in stables. We don't have any specific evidence of the names. They lived in the basement of a barber shop. We are never told the name of the streets. So the setting that Jerry Spinelli describes for us doesn't give us the specific names of specific streets or the specific names of specific buildings or companies or shops. But what he does do is he creates a believable setting of 1939 Warsaw, Poland in the Jewish ghetto by describing how the buildings are all ransacked and they've been bombed, so there's a lot of rubble and debris. And so he's taking the actual historically accurate information of the Holocaust, and that's the setting. That's where he's dropping these characters and this action. So it's pretty accurate, especially when we look at what these two pieces share. 1939, Warsaw, Poland, jackboots, Jews are discriminated against. Those facts are things that I found in my research. So when you work on this worksheet this week, what you're going to be looking for are at least five facts from your historical research that tell about time and place. And you're going to put it on the right-hand side of your Venn diagram. So those are 5 facts. Then, from those facts, I want you to think about the next thing is 5 setting facts that are unique to your book. What are some things that the author puts in the story that you didn't find in your research? And you're going to put that on the left-hand side of your Venn diagram. What are some things that were not in research? And then lastly, what did you find both in your historical research as well as in your fiction book? And you're going to put those shared facts in the center. So again, everything on the right is what are 5 really important facts that you got only from your research. On the left, you're going to find at least 5 different facts that describe the setting that really came from just the book, the author's imagination. And then this is really the comparison, this center. What are the facts that the author used that are historically accurate? And that's what I want you to be thinking about as you read your book is what's real, what's historically verifiable through research, and what is part of the author's imagination and creativity. So this piece will be one with the first kind of, we'll call it like a journal entry that you're going to be handing in for our historical fiction unit.